You ease yourself into the soft glow of your screen, maybe tucked under a blanket, maybe stretched out on your bed, and you can already tell this is going to be one of those nights where reality loosens its grip. The walls around you feel closer than usual, and the air carries that sleepy hum you only notice when you're paying attention. There's comfort here, yes, but also that sly nudge of curiosity. The sense that once you start down this path, you won't be coming back the same. And hey, let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. Not in the ordinary sense anyway. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. There's something strangely grounding about knowing someone across the world might be hearing this same story at a completely different hour. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins with your footsteps on a path that shouldn't exist. You're not sure if you drifted into it while daydreaming, or if sleep itself decided to take your hand and lead you here. Either way, the ground beneath you is cool, smooth, like stone worn down by centuries of wandering feet. The air clings with a faint mist, not damp enough to shiver, but enough to remind you that you're no longer in the world you knew 5 minutes ago. You walk forward because, honestly, what else would you do? Turning back isn't an option, not because anything is stopping you, but because there's nothing behind you anymore. Just a haze, a vanishing. Forward is the only direction left. To your left, the landscape stretches into rolling shadows that mimic hills, though they ripple like the surface of a black lake when you stare too long. To your right, something like trees, but they're carved from glass, their branches tinkling faintly when the air shifts. You catch your reflection there, fractured a dozen times, and for a moment, it looks like all of your possible selves are staring back. Some amused, some tired. One of them maybe even angry. You blink, and the images scatter, leaving only your face, slightly warped, but still recognizably yours. The sky, if you can even call it a sky, hangs low, heavy, with a dull silver glow. No stars, no moon, no sun. Just illumination without source. It presses down, yet oddly it doesn't feel suffocating. More like a ceiling painted by someone who didn't quite understand how light works, but wanted to try anyway. As you walk, the path tilts, almost imperceptibly at first, then with more insistence, drawing you toward a structure in the distance. It looks ancient, though you can't place why. Not crumbling, not broken, just heavy with time. 4 pillars rise, framing an entrance that doesn't quite align with logic. The doorway is taller than it is wide, yet it seems to shift proportions when you blink. It wants you to notice, to question, maybe even to hesitate. You don't. You keep going. When you pass between those pillars, the air changes. Denser, almost sweet, like old paper and faint smoke. It reminds you of libraries where books keep secrets they never meant to share. You inhale, and the scent settles into your lungs like you've inhaled a story that's been waiting centuries just for you. Inside, the corridor stretches out, longer than you expected, lined with walls etched in markings you don't recognize. Spirals, curves, jagged lines that almost look like maps, but not of any place you've ever seen. You run your fingers across them, and the surface hums faintly, vibrating under your skin. It feels alive. The silence here isn't empty. It's thick, like 1,000 whispers layered on top of one another, too hushed to catch, but loud enough to remind you they're there. You keep walking, each footstep swallowed quickly by the space, as though the place doesn't want echoes lingering. Halfway down, you notice an alcove to the side. Something gleams faintly there. You crouch, brushing aside the faint mist that creeps along the floor, and find a fragment of glass shaped like a tear. When you lift it, it glows faintly in your palm, catching the dull silver of the ceiling. the hum of the corridor sharpens. For a moment, the walls brighten, patterns racing like veins carrying light. Then it fades, leaving you in dimness again. You pocket the fragment without knowing why. Instinct tells you it matters. Farther in, the corridor curves, leading to a chamber. Not massive, not small, just wide enough to feel significant. At its center, a pedestal rises, plain stone, no markings. On it sits a box, wooden, darkened with age, but intact. Its surface is covered with faint scratches, like it's been clawed at, or maybe loved too fiercely. The key you don't remember holding is suddenly in your hand. You blink down at it, confused, then laugh softly. Because at this point, why bother questioning? Dreams have their own rules. You step closer to the box. The hum grows louder, almost a vibration now, rattling faintly in your chest. You slot the key into the lock. It turns with surprising ease, a click that echoes far louder than it should. The box opens. Inside, not treasure, not jewels, not secrets written on ancient parchment. Inside is a mirror, small, hand-sized, framed in tarnished silver. Its surface ripples like water when you look at it, and when you finally dare to raise it, what stares back isn't your reflection. It's you, yes, but not quite. The version in the glass moves a second slower than you, its expression shifting differently. When you smile, it frowns. When you tilt your head, it tilts the opposite way. You watch, uneasy fascination curling in your gut, until finally the figure in the mirror stops copying you at all. It looks straight at you, holding your gaze with an intensity that makes your chest tighten. And then it whispers something you don't hear but somehow understand. You almost drop the mirror, but you don't. You slip it into your pocket beside the fragment of glass. The hum softens. The chamber breathes again. The path forward opens. And without thinking twice, you step into it. The path beyond the chamber narrows again, drawing you forward as if the place itself knows you won't resist. The air is cooler here, edged with a faint metallic taste that clings to your tongue. You keep one hand on your pocket, feeling the weight of the mirror pressing lightly against your leg, as if it's reminding you that it's still there, still watching, even without your eyes on it. The fragment of glass shifts too, edges sharp, a silent echo of what waits ahead. The corridor bends like a spiral, each curve leading you deeper into a hush so complete you start hearing your own heartbeat. You wonder if that sound belongs only to you, or if the walls themselves are pulsing in time with it. Shadows stretch across the stone, not menacing, but certainly aware. Every flicker of movement feels intentional, like this place is paying attention. After what feels like an endless walk, the passage opens into a wide hall. You step in cautiously, your shoes clicking against a floor so polished it almost reflects the glow from above. The ceiling here is impossibly high, vanishing into mist. But faint points of light hover there, like stars suspended indoors. You tilt your head back and, for a heartbeat, you think you see constellations, but they're not the ones you recognize. These shapes are stranger, spirals, jagged lines, a symbol that looks uncomfortably like an eye staring down. You blink, and the lights scatter into randomness again. At the far end of the hall, a door waits, larger than any door you've ever seen, carved of black wood veined with silver. Its handle is low, too low for the scale, as if built for someone smaller than you. You hesitate, palm hovering above the metal. It's cold, unnervingly so, almost burning in reverse when your skin finally meets it. The door swings open without effort. Beyond lies another chamber. This one circular, its floor patterned with rings of stone that ripple outward from the center like waves caught in time. And in the middle sits a chair. Not a throne, not ornate. Just a simple wooden chair. Except someone is sitting in it. You freeze. The figure is cloaked, face obscured, hands folded neatly on their lap. They don't move, don't breathe, yet you sense the weight of their attention on you. You try to speak, but the words dissolve before leaving your lips. And then, slowly, the figure raises its head. Where a face should be, there's only glass. Smooth, reflective, like a mirror cut into the shape of a skull. You see yourself staring back, distorted by the curve of the surface. For a moment, your reflection tilts its head, even though you haven't moved. You grip the mirror in your pocket, your pulse spiking. The figure doesn't rise. It only gestures, one slow sweep of its hand toward the far wall, where another doorway pulses faintly with light. The gesture is calm, but you can't shake the feeling it's also dismissive, like you're being allowed through rather than welcomed. You step sideways, keeping your eyes on the faceless figure, moving toward the light. Your footsteps are too loud in the silence, but the figure never reacts. Even when you reach the threshold and glance back, they're still sitting perfectly still, head tilted just slightly in that wrong, uncanny angle. You pass through the glowing doorway. On the other side, the world shifts again. The ground is no longer stone, but soft earth, moss pressing under your shoes. Trees rise around you, real this time, or at least real enough to fool your senses. The air smells of pine and damp soil, rich and grounding. Above, the silver. Ceiling has given way to a forest canopy, moonlight spilling through in pale streaks. You breathe easier, though you don't know why. This place feels less like a trap and more like an invitation. The path winds forward between the trees, and you follow, listening to the faint rustle of unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth. Somewhere an owl calls, though its voice echoes strangely, too metallic to be natural. After a while, you come upon a clearing. In the center stands a stone well, its lip worn smooth, vines curling lazily around it. The well hums faintly, the same resonance you've been hearing since the first corridor. You peer over the edge, expecting darkness. But what you see is your own reflection again, faintly distorted in rippling water far below. This time, the reflection doesn't copy you at all. It just stares up, motionless, patient. You lean closer, your breath stirring the surface. The reflection finally moves. But instead of mimicking you, it lifts a hand, palm open, as though asking you to give it something. You hesitate, and then, slowly, you pull the fragment of glass from your pocket. Its edges catch the moonlight, glowing faintly. You hold it over the well. The reflection nods, and before you can think twice, you let the fragment slip from your fingers. It falls soundlessly, vanishing into the water. The hum deepens, echoing through the forest. The ground shivers under your feet. You step back as the reflection below shifts, blurring, reshaping, until it no longer looks like you at all. The well exhales a cold mist, and just like that, the forest feels alive in a way that has nothing to do with trees or animals. It feels like the whole place is watching, waiting, deciding. And you, standing at the edge of the well, realize you've just agreed to something you don't understand. The path out of the clearing winds upward now, twisting between roots and low-hanging branches that brush your arms with gentle insistence. The air's cooler here, scented faintly with wet stone and moss, and it carries a softness that makes each step feel like sinking into a dream. You notice the ground shifting slightly beneath your feet, almost like the earth itself is breathing in time with you. Ahead, a structure emerges through the trees. At first it looks like an ordinary tavern, windows faintly lit, smoke curling from a chimney, but the closer you get, the more impossible it becomes. The walls lean at impossible angles, and lanterns hang from posts that seem to float a few inches above the floor. Some flicker with colors you don't recognize, shifting from violet to teal to golden in ways your mind can't quite process. A door opens as you approach, not by hinge, not by handle, but as if the tavern itself decided to grant you entry. The floorboards creak softly beneath your weight as you step inside. Warmth immediately envelops you, the kind of warmth that isn't just physical. It settles into your bones, pressing out the tension you didn't realize you were carrying. The tavern is bustling, but in a way that doesn't make sense. Patrons sit in clusters, though many are only vaguely human, their faces shifting when you look away, as if the tavern has borrowed shapes from memories it doesn't quite own. Laughter hums softly in the background, sometimes distant, sometimes just behind your ear. One of the lanterns floats past you, its light tracing patterns on the ceiling like a living constellation. You find a seat at the bar, though the bartender doesn't seem concerned with your presence. He, or it, is a figure made entirely of shadows, stitched together at the edges by faint threads of gold. When he slides a mug toward you, the liquid inside glows faintly, swirling with colors that remind you of both storm clouds and candy. You lift it, take a cautious sip, and the warmth spreads through your chest, down to your fingers and toes, leaving a faint tingle that reminds you you're alive. Sort of. The room pulses softly, not with music, but with a rhythm that feels internal, like the heartbeat of the building itself. You notice small details in the corners, a dice rolling endlessly on a table, never falling, a deck of cards shuffling itself in midair, a candle that flickers but never burns down. Each one seems deliberately arranged, as if the tavern is more alive than any of its patrons. You sit back, letting the ambiance wash over you. The warmth is comforting, but there's also something sly about it, as if the tavern knows it has you exactly where it wants. You lean forward slightly and realize the shadows of the patrons are watching you, just out of focus, their attention intense but passive. Then a fiddle begins to play in the corner, not with strings, but with light. Waves of illumination that twist and curl into melodies you can feel vibrating through your chest. You don't try to understand it. You just let it wrap around you. The floor seems to sway ever so slightly, rhythmically, keeping time with the music. A corner table catches your eye. On it sits a small, leather-bound book, edges frayed, with pages that shimmer faintly as if catching unseen light. You move toward it, curiosity outweighing caution. The moment you touch it, the tavern quiets almost completely. Even the floating lanterns dim slightly, as if pausing to watch your next action. You open the book. The pages are blank at first glance, but as you focus, faint words begin to appear, forming sentences you didn't consciously think of. They describe what you've already done tonight, walking the corridors, holding the mirror, dropping the glass into the well. Even the thoughts you didn't speak aloud are there, transcribed in ink that glows softly under your touch. A chill brushes your neck. You glance around. The shadow bartender tilts his head slightly, observing. The patrons barely move, but somehow you sense that every one of them knows what you've just discovered. The tavern doesn't serve drinks. It serves reflection, memory, choices. You trace a finger over the page. Another sentence appears, describing what might come next. The path you've been following is being written as you walk it, and somehow, the tavern is both observer and author. A quiet, thrilling anxiety settles into your chest. Suddenly, a doorway appears along the back wall, one that wasn't there a moment ago. Light seeps from the frame, promising the next step. You hesitate, glancing back at the bar, at the floating lanterns, at the patrons whose faces blur in and out of familiarity. The tavern seems to shrug, almost impatiently, encouraging you to move on. You step toward the doorway. Each movement feels heavy, as though the tavern is holding you lightly in place, reluctant to let you leave. The music of light from the corner fiddle swells, brushing your skin with warmth and vibration. You reach the frame, and with a breath, you step through. The warmth dissipates immediately. The familiar hum returns. You're back in the corridor beyond the forest clearing. though now it feels different, more alive, more purposeful. The path stretches ahead, winding again, leading deeper into whatever this journey has become. And as you continue forward, you realize that the tavern wasn't a place. It was a lesson, a pause, a reflection of what lies within you, waiting for the right moment to move onward. The corridor narrows again, winding between walls that now seem less solid and more like folds in the air itself. Every step forward stretches the space, elongating shadows into shapes you almost recognize. Sometimes faces, sometimes objects that belong to nowhere you've ever been. The hum beneath your feet deepens, a vibration you feel in your chest as much as you hear with your ears. You brush against the wall, and it gives slightly soft, pliant, as though it were molded from clouds rather than stone. The corridor twists left, then right, then back upon itself in a way that should be impossible, yet your feet continue to move forward without hesitation. Time feels slippery here. Minutes stretch into hours, or perhaps compress into seconds. You can't tell. You're entirely present, yet part of you suspects you've been walking this path longer than any clock could measure. Ahead, a doorway opens into a garden. Not the kind you expect with flowers or lawns, but a garden of suspended lights. Lanterns hover in the air, some shaped like tiny suns, some like stars, all shimmering faintly, casting soft reflections across the twisted pathways. The ground is uneven, small stones embedded in moss forming vague patterns like constellations pressed into the earth. You step carefully, each footfall absorbed by the soft, mossy floor. A wind stirs, though you feel no breeze against your skin. It carries the faint scent of spices, cardamom, cinnamon, something floral you can't name. The lights sway in response, almost alive, and you realize they are whispering, though you cannot catch the words. They flicker rhythmically, pulsing like a heartbeat in sync with the hum beneath your feet. You move deeper into the garden. Each lantern you pass seems to pause and watch, lingering on your face just long enough to make you glance away. In one cluster, a small figure appears briefly, a child, translucent, holding a balloon shaped like a crescent moon. It smiles at you, though the smile is oddly empty, and then drifts upward, vanishing among the higher lanterns. The path curves again, leading to a fountain at the garden's center. Its water is black as obsidian, perfectly still, reflecting the lanterns above like a fractured sky. You kneel to look closer, and faint shapes ripple beneath the surface. Scenes from your memory? Maybe. The first time you fell asleep outside. The taste of rain on a summer day. Your mother laughing over something trivial, yet unforgettable. Each ripple pulls them closer, as if inviting you to reach in and touch them. You hesitate, fingers brushing the water's surface. The liquid moves instantly, coiling around your hand like living silk. Cool, but not unpleasant. You retract your hand slowly, watching as the images fold back into the dark water. The fountain hums now, lower, almost secretive, carrying a vibration that settles deep in your chest. Around the fountain, stone benches are arranged in a circle. Sitting on one, you notice a small notebook, leather-bound, pages slightly frayed. No name, no title. Yet when you open it, words appear immediately. Lines describing places you've been in your dreams, fears you've never admitted, hopes you didn't realize you carried. The pages glow faintly as you read, illuminating your face with soft gold light. One phrase catches your attention. The garden chooses what you are ready to see. You pause. It resonates, the truth hidden in its simplicity. You understand, in some way, that each lantern, each floating shape, each ripple in the fountain has been waiting for you to arrive. This place isn't random. It's deliberate, curated, a reflection of what your subconscious wants you to confront, or perhaps what it wants you to embrace. A sudden shift. The hum changes pitch, and one lantern brightens more than the others, drawing your gaze. It hovers just above the fountain, swinging gently. You step closer, hand outstretched, and the moment your fingers brush the light, the entire garden seems to exhale. The air grows thicker, warmer, and a pathway of shimmering particles unfolds before you, arcing upward, leading away from the fountain. Without thinking, you follow. Each step along the particle path sends a ripple through the garden. Lanterns flickering in response, shadows dancing across the mossy stones. You notice the path isn't entirely solid. It shifts slightly beneath your weight, like walking on clouds stitched together by unseen hands. At the far end, the path leads to a bridge, delicate and arched, spanning nothing visible, suspended in midair. The lanterns thin out, and the garden falls behind you, fading into a haze. You glance down and your stomach flutters. The space below is infinite, yet the bridge holds firm. The air around you hums again, more persistent this time, vibrating through your bones. Halfway across, the bridge shakes lightly underfoot. You tighten your grip on the invisible railing, heart quickening, and notice that the lanterns above have formed a pattern, a constellation-like map, pointing towards something unseen. You follow the direction instinctively, trusting some deeper sense rather than sight. At the end of the bridge, a doorway awaits. Carved entirely from pale wood, its surface etched with spirals and loops, it hums faintly as though alive. You step forward, and the door swings open silently, welcoming, yet patient, as if it has been expecting you for centuries. Beyond it lies a corridor of mirrors. Not ordinary mirrors, but ones that reflect possibilities rather than reality. You glimpse yourself in countless forms, older, younger, braver, afraid, all existing simultaneously. One reflection smiles knowingly, another frowns, and you feel a strange kinship with each. You step through, moving past the shifting reflections, and the corridor seems to stretch endlessly, guiding you onward. You realize with a thrill that you are becoming part of the story itself, not just an observer, not just a wanderer. Each choice, each step, each glance molds the path in front of you. And as the corridor curves once more, the hum beneath your feet rises, resonating with something deep in your chest. You know you are being drawn toward something significant, something waiting at the heart of this strange, breathing landscape. The corridor finally opens into a vast hall, one that feels larger than anything you've seen before. The ceiling is impossibly high, fading into mist so thick it almost seems like clouds trapped indoors. A soft, silvery light filters down, scattering across the floor in a pattern that shifts with every step you take. The walls are smooth but alive, subtly rippling as if breathing along with you. You hesitate for a moment, realizing this space doesn't just exist. It responds. You move forward, feeling the hum grow stronger, a vibration you can sense in your chest, in your fingers, even in the tip of your nose. There's something waiting here, something deliberate. Ahead, a series of arches line the hall, each one framing a scene that feels impossibly familiar, yet entirely new. One shows a forest at twilight, where the leaves whisper secrets you almost recognize. Another reveals a city street frozen in time, shadows long and exaggerated, as if night itself is leaning in to watch. As you pass each arch, the air shifts. A faint breeze carries scents that trigger memories you didn't know you remembered. Wet stone, ink on paper, the metallic tang of a first rain. You glance down at the floor beneath your feet and notice subtle engravings, swirling patterns that pulse faintly with the hum. Your reflection appears